Sunday, June 9th, 2024, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So, will the Fed be abolished? Well, Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky introduced a bill that's been introduced before by Ron Paul back in 1999, and also back in 2009, he introduced the Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act to end the Fed. That was back in May 16th. I spoke about that in one of my videos. And it's a long shot, but I noticed that on June 6th, a senator from Utah, Senator Mike Lee, he introduced the same bill. So I think that's encouraging. And how come I hadn't heard of this before? I haven't seen anyone report it. Well, with all the distractions out there, of course, not just a political distractions to do with President Trump, the election in November, but also the talk, the serious talk about a possible escalation of tensions with Russia, the outbreak maybe of World War III, what else? The jobs data, the FOMC meeting, the Fed meeting Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm sure they're not going to do anything, but there's a lot of distractions there. And I think that's part of the whole problem that we have in the current system, not just in the US, but here in the UK as well. All the distractions about Rishi Sunak not attending D-Day celebrations, about Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. It's all kabuki theater. It's all to keep you unaware of the real important questions that affect every man, woman, and child, not just in the United States, but everywhere around the world. And it's to do with the control of the currency, the control of money. Just like anything in an economy, money and the currency should be left to the free market. And that's why I've always championed the questions like ending central banks, because central banking is just a monopoly. It's part of the Communist Manifesto. It's one of the planks, 10 planks, centralized credit. And I think it's a really bad idea. And so did Representative Charles Lindbergh Sr. back in 1913. He was against the Federal Reserve Act. And this is what he said. This Federal Reserve Act establishes the most gigantic trust on earth. When President Wilson signs this bill, the invisible government of the monetary power will be legalized. The worst legislative crime of the ages is perpetrated by this banking and currency bill. So that was Charles Lindbergh Sr., the father of the aviator, of course. And here we are, $35 trillion later. That's what the national debt is approaching right now in the US. And the Fed's still around. But I think people are starting to wake up. And so what can people in the United States, of course, I'm in the UK, but this affects the whole world, and that's why I talk about it. What can people do in the US? Well, if you're watching this, you might want to write to your senators or to your representative if you really feel strongly about ending the Fed, and tell them that you want them to support these bills. So let's quickly go through here the breaking news that came out on June 6th. Senator Mike Lee introduced the Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act, legislation that would dissolve the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and the Federal Reserve Banks, and repeal the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, which established the system. Representative Thomas Massie leads the companion bill in the House of Representatives. The Federal Reserve has overstepped and repeatedly failed to achieve its mandate and become an economic manipulator that has directly contributed to the financial instability many Americans face today. This legislation aims to protect our economic future by dismantling a system that enables unchecked government spending, the monetization of federal debt that fuels it, and widespread economic disruption. It's time to end the Fed. That was Senator Mike Lee. So my view of central banks, not just the Fed, is that they're there to serve the money lenders, the big banks. And what they do is they do everything to keep the banking system going. And when the banks do really well, their profits are privatized. The shareholders and the owners of the bank take in the profit. And that sounds reasonable. But the problem with the Federal Reserve and the banking cartel is that when there are crises, the Fed comes in with the help of the Treasury and bails out the whole system because their excuse is that if we don't do this, the whole economy is going to collapse. We're going to have martial law. And they've used that throughout the Fed's existence. So they socialize the losses. And that's what this 35 trillion in public debt, national debt, is all about. It's been accumulating to keep the bankers' game going, this monopoly game really going. And I remember at the Mises Institute, I was there in 2002 for their 20th anniversary, and Ron Paul was there, and I had a chat with him, and he told me the story of when he went up to Greenspan after one of the testimonies that he was part of, asking questions of Greenspan in Congress. And after it finished, he went to Greenspan with a copy of an article Greenspan wrote, I think, in 1966 about gold and economic freedom. And this article is quite famous. I would try to find it and read it. I might get a link and put it in the description. The gist of it was that Greenspan said that statists or people in government, the deep state, the whole DC or Westminster apparatus, they hate gold because it puts a straitjacket on them because they can't spend and increase the debt as much. And Ron Paul he said he asked Alan Greenspan, because he had Alan Greenspan autograph the article for him, and he said, do you still believe in all that? And don't forget, at the time he was chairman of the Federal Reserve, and his response to Ron Paul was, yes, I do. And at the same time, Greenspan said, but unfortunately the people want the Fed. They want the inflation. They want the spending. They want the government largesse. That's what the people want. But I think things could be changing now. The tide could be turning. What could trigger more interest in abolishing or ending the Fed? Well, I think a major crisis that comes out of left field or something that catches the Fed and the Treasury unawares. That could make people question even more the system. That happened, of course, in 2008. Before 2008, no one ever talked about ending the Fed except for Ron Paul. And there are very few people out there talking about this. But it's a much more talked about topic. So that's what I wanted to tell you. Unfortunately, I can't do the live stream tonight. But hopefully we'll be back next Sunday. And before I finish, just wanted to recommend 3 books about the Federal Reserve that might help you understand what the Federal Reserve is all about. The first one is The Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins. I'm not sure how easy it is to find this book, but Eustace Mullins really was the granddaddy of looking into the Fed. He started looking into the Fed in the 1950s. And then you have The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is probably much more, let's say, popular than Eustace Mullins' book, but just as good a book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. I think it's easier to get this. It's by G. Edward Griffin. Highly recommend it. And last but not least, Ron Paul's and the Fed. So there you go, Ron Paul and the Fed. And with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good rest of the weekend, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.